I'm Seth Poliosco. I am an engineer, hard-nosed engineer, and that's why I have to qualify myself, because you are talking about macroeconomics and all these things.
See, I do the same thing when I'm doing this.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned even being an engineer, I try to stick to engineering and the microeconomics. So a lot of these are good. So first, you mentioned about culture. In my simple mind, I know that culture is very important, especially in the Philippines. We have different cultures all over the country, and we see the growth of each region depending on the culture. And if you take a look at Asia, you see the culture of Asia that is moving forward. And when I analyze, I've been very often to the Korean Academy of Science and Technology, China Academy, and all these things. When I look at this, this is the so-called entrepreneurial spirit of these people within this region, which are the Chinese, the Koreans, and in fact, we taught the Koreans, the Hyundai, to assemble cars during the time of Senator Paterno when he was with BOI. And that was when we had industrialization. But I think now we are on globalization. So culture is very important, and we try to choose which areas we can best. If I put up a business in Lanao del Sur, where I came from, I don't know if I will ever succeed. No? If I put it up in Sulu or Tawi-Tawi, and I did that, seaweed and fish and others, I lost money. I made money on wild hogs that were swimming from Sabah to Sulu, sa Tangkay. Okay. Second, yeah. So second is the so-called geography. You have not mentioned about climate change, which is now devastating the world. And in the Philippines, it is a very, very serious problem. We no longer get into the regions where we have the floods and all these things. And we see sardines in Dipolog, Zamboanga, that are no longer abundant in there because the climate change has changed the breeding grounds of these things. And so all of these things are happening. And if you look at that geography, it is very important. You have that entrepreneurial spirit, but you also have the climate change. You take a look at Iowa. The best corn in the world are grown in Iowa. They make their 12 tons, we only make 3 tons. Why? They have longer sunlight and all these things. You look at Vietnam and the 6 countries in the Mekong River. They have free water. Here we have to dig, and the pumps are useless because there is no more water. It went down. And that has happened to the DA system and everything. So all of this, the culture, the so-called geography is very important. And we also take a look at institutions. In fact, the World Economic Forum and the IMD are concentrating so much on institutions and science and technology. When your colleague Jeffrey Sachs was here, you know, he was concentrating a lot on not only the economics portion, but also science and technology. And he even said, I was made to react, science and technology in the Philippines and R&D is useless. Well, he talked to a few people from the academe, and true enough, the researchers were not going into the commercialization aspect. And I had to be asked by Winnie Monsod to react to such statement. Of course, I said, no, it's not useless. It only needs to improve the productivity and transform it to the private sector. So all these things are now happening, and I am an ardent student of culture, economics, institution, and others, although I'm just an engineer that is following science. You know, in engineering, we are so sure about our theories because these are all scientific. We have a law, like the law of gravity. You cannot contest the law of gravity, but I can contest your theories. Thank you.
You're doing pretty well for an engineer, it seems to me. Those are a lot of wonderful comments. And I want to pursue one of them in particular, and that was regional issues. All countries have them and have had them. The U.S. had a poor South for a long time before it overtook the North. Italy still has a poor South, and so on. And that all of these differences we see in these various countries may be driven by cultural differences. That's possible. Though they usually all share the same institutions, but there may be cultural differences across the regions. And that has an implication, and the implication is that markets, private firms, and governments should exploit these opportunities to go into the regions that have the highest growth potential, and to try not to have it a broad based development effort, but have it locally based in regions which seem to be responding well to incentive and where the culture seems to be more consistent with good economic performance. So any effort, and apparently there is much of it, to look for regional nodes of development within the Philippines to the south of us is good policy, it seems to me. So on that point, we're in agreement.